They laughed when a millionaire, with only 2 weeks to live, decided to adopt a Blackstreet child. That morning, the wind slammed hard against the hospital tower's glass, but she didn't feel it. No, really, Eleanor Orthorne, 32 years old, was once known as New York's Silicon Angel. Brilliant, beautiful, and a self-made millionaire in the tech world. At 28, she was already on the cover of Forbes. Her software company was valued at over $500 million. But none of that mattered anymore. 4 months ago, she collapsed during a board meeting. The diagnosis came quickly, an aggressive, fatal autoimmune lung disease. When it was discovered, her lungs were already failing. Not the best doctors, not the latest technology, not even urgent private jet trips to clinics in Switzerland made a difference. The truth was simple and brutal. She was dying. Now, an oxygen tank accompanied her everywhere. She had become a walking countdown clock. She had maybe 2 weeks left, perhaps less. Most assumed she would leave the city to hide away somewhere quiet and beautiful. But Eleanor had spent her entire life running towards success and power, and for the first time, she stopped. She felt a strange calm, as if standing at death's door suddenly made her understand the futility of her victories. The mansion, the luxury cars, the endless meetings, the fake smiles at charity galas, none of it filled her soul. She had no children, no partner. Her parents had died years ago. Friends? Just business partners disguised as affection. Once she thought about adopting. She had seriously considered it, but someone always told her, "You have time. Focus on yourself first." Now, there was no more time. That morning, something inside her urged her to get up. With trembling fingers, she adjusted her oxygen cannula, slowly sat up, and dragged the green tank behind her. Every step was a struggle, every breath a sip of air through an invisible straw. She left her apartment and walked. She passed honking cars, people glued to their phones, and glass skyscrapers reflecting the cold city she herself had helped build. She didn't know where she was going. She just walked until she saw him. He stood alone on the sidewalk in front of a corporate tower, barefoot, his skin dark as wet earth. He wore nothing but a torn, filthy shirt. No more than 5 years old. His legs were thin, his belly swollen, his arms covered in dust as if he hadn't bathed in days. His curly hair was messy and his hands hung limply at his sides, as if he had nothing left to lift them for. No one stopped. An executive stepped around him like he was a puddle. A woman hugged her daughter and walked away without even looking. But Eleanor stopped. Despite the burning in her chest, she knelt down. The oxygen tank tugged at her as if gravity itself was trying to hold her back at that moment. Their eyes met. The boy didn't run. He didn't cry. He just looked at her with a calm that tore at her soul. "What's your name?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hiss of oxygen. He didn't answer, but she didn't need one. In his silence, she saw something familiar. Loneliness, invisibility in a world that pretends to care. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small candy. The only thing she had. She offered it to him. He didn't take it. Instead, he looked at her oxygen tank and tubes. Something in his expression was different. "I'm dying," Eleanor said without knowing why she said it. "Maybe I needed someone to know, but I don't want to go without doing something that really matters." Then the boy took a step, then another. He reached out carefully and touched the mask on her face. His fingers were small and soft, but covered in the city's grime. Then, without hesitation, he looked into her eyes and said, "I know how to heal you." Eleanor blinked, confused. "Did I hear that right? What did you say?" She murmured, her voice trembling. "I know how to heal you," he repeated, calm and steady, as if carrying knowledge no child should have. She stared at him. His face was expressionless, but deep, like he had seen things even adults couldn't understand. Then she looked around. A man in a tie passed by, muttering, "Crazy." A mother clutched her daughter tightly and threw Eleanor a pitying glance. Everyone saw her. A white woman in her 30s, rich, with an oxygen line in her nose, kneeling on the cold concrete in front of a black, dirty child who had nothing but silence and wise eyes. No one understood. She didn't laugh, but she didn't fully believe him either. She stood up, chest burning, breath painful. But for the first time in a long time, her heart, weak as it was, beat with purpose. He was just a child, abandoned, forgotten, probably malnourished. What could he possibly know about healing? But there was something in his eyes, something firm, profound, impossible to ignore, something that made her feel more human than she had in years. Kofi reminded her of herself, silent, hardened by a world that turned its back too soon, surviving without anyone noticing. Eleanor didn't expect miracles. She just knew she couldn't turn around and leave him there. That night, she returned, this time with a soft blanket, a small backpack with clean clothes, and her chauffeur waiting in the nearby car. The boy was still there. When she knelt again, he didn't back away. She picked him up carefully, and to her surprise, he rested against her chest as if he'd been waiting for that hug his whole life. His name, she learned later, was Kofi. He was 5 years old and didn't know his last name. His mother died in a fire when he was just 3. He hadn't heard from his father since. He slept behind a bakery until the owner was arrested. No one looked for him. No one seemed to care. When Eleanor began the emergency adoption process, the voices started. "She's losing her mind," whispered a nurse. "Why would a dying woman adopt a child?" said another. The tabloids were quick. "The terminal tech queen adopts street child with supposed healing powers." A simple emotional farewell trick, some called it. But Eleanor didn't respond. She didn't have the energy for shallow judgments. Kofi became a silent constant by her side. He slept in a small bed next to hers in the hospital. He helped carry her oxygen tank when she could no longer do it herself. He stayed still during treatments, whispering soft words. Prayers, perhaps. And then something strange began to happen. Her cough disappeared. The tightness in her chest faded. Her oxygen levels improved. "It's abnormal," one doctor said. "It must be a false stabilization," another said. But Eleanor knew it wasn't science, it was him. Kofi would gently place his hand on her chest, close his eyes, and murmur words she didn't understand. Maybe a language from his mother's village, or maybe just made-up words that brought comfort. Then he would hum, a soft, slow song, always the same, a melody that wrapped around her like warm wind. One night she asked him, "What is that song?" Kofi smiled for the first time. "My mom sang it when I was sick. I think it helps." There was no medical explanation, no public miracle, just love, energy, and real presence. Weeks turned into months. Eleanor no longer needed oxygen every day. Then, not even every week. Her appetite returned. Her body grew stronger. Doctors were baffled. "You're not just stabilizing," her pulmonologist told her during a scan. "You're regenerating. Your lungs are healing." Tears filled her eyes, not for the diagnosis that once condemned her, but for the hope and love that had unexpectedly saved her life.